Hi, this is Catherine Berris from Urban Systems. We're the consultants who were hired to help the District of Mission pull together your official community plan update. I will be referring to it as OCP throughout this presentation, which stands for Official Community Plan. I will give an introduction to what an OCP is and talk about the process we went through to get to this point. I'll give a high-level overview of some of our recommendations and the next steps. So we had a very extensive community engagement process in the early stages of forming this OCP because we wanted to find out what the vision of the community is. There was a dedicated web page. There is a dedicated web page on the district's website that's specifically about the OCP, and it has all of the documents we've produced throughout the process. Gina McKay, your planner, went to, we called them go-to meetings. She went to the meetings of various organizations throughout the community 12 times to try to raise interest in the OCP. We had inaugural workshops with staff from all different departments within the city, and we asked them, what's good about your OCP that you'd like to keep? What are some of the things that you'd like to improve? And what are your suggestions for the new OCP? The highlight of the engagement was an online community survey that was answered by 480 people. So that gave us a really broad representation of people in the community. And our main purpose for that survey was to really find out, what is your vision for Mission? What would you like to see happen in the future as growth occurs? We had 4 stakeholder workshops. These were on different themes like arts and culture, business, etc. And we had 91 people attend those. We had a community open house that was attended by 145 people with workshops occurring throughout that open house. We had, and in addition, because that one was central and Mission is composed of distinct neighborhoods, we went to 6 different neighborhoods and had additional open houses with 136 more people. Gina's been working on outreach to the First Nations, and there's also a social media portion of the project that's letting people know when things are happening. So we were really, really happy with the level of involvement and participation by community members. There are hundreds of pages that have all the input from the community, and those are all on that web page I talked about. But this slide, which I don't expect you to read, actually summarizes quite succinctly what the community priorities are. And this was from the community survey. So 480 people participated in this, and we feel we heard these same themes reflected in a lot of the other engagement activities we had. So number 1, manage new development to increase environmental protection and parks and recreation amenities. Increase employment opportunities, including home-based and high-tech businesses. Improve transportation opportunities, such as walking, cycling, and transit. Encourage diverse and affordable housing options. Integrate land use planning and infrastructure servicing, such as water, sewer, and roads. Enhance agriculture and food security. Provide a walkable, vibrant downtown, and encourage more compact development. So this really gave us a lot to work with, combined with all the many other comments. So the OCP itself is structured like this. There is a vision, that's the overall high-level thinking about where the community wants to go in the future. Supporting the vision are guiding principles, which are really the high-level ways of achieving that vision. We then have, for each topic area in the OCP, objectives, and then more specific policies. So I want to talk a little bit about what an OCP is. The provincial government has legislation saying that every municipality has to have an OCP, and it needs to be updated every 5 to 10 years or when conditions are changing. The OCP is a policy document. It's actually a legal bylaw that guides growth. It doesn't commit the district to anything. It doesn't commit the district, for example, to spending any money. It's a policy document that helps the district decide how to respond to applications that are proposed by property owners or developers. So it's very important to realize this is a plan, but it's a policy plan, and that the actual shaping of the community happens through the private sector and others who are building things. The other thing that is important to remember here is that there's a big difference between an OCP and zoning. An OCP is the guide for the future, and it's the high-level policy document. Zoning is talking about what properties and the land use on properties today, and it's a much more detailed document that talks about how high a building can be, how many parking stalls you need, and things like that. So the biggest distinctions, OCP is future and zoning is present. And I'm just saying that because a lot of people tend to get confused sometimes between OCP and zoning. So what's our vision? It came right out of all of the consultation that we conducted, and I'll just highlight, the keywords here. It should be a sustainable, safe community. We heard a lot about the friendliness of Mission and how people want to make sure it stays that way. Green spaces are very important, the incredible forests, mountains, rivers, and lakes. Respect for First Nations territory and strong connections with our heritage. Having a very vibrant downtown and waterfront, both having lots of people and various activities going on. There should be increasing employment because we did a land demand study in the early stages of this that showed, as I'm sure you all know, that many people have to leave Mission to work. And so having more employment opportunities within the district is really important. There should be retain the small town community feel is something that's really important to people. Making sure you continue to have lots of recreation activities and community services. And last but not least, a great arts and culture scene. So the guiding principles build on the vision, and I don't need to read these. These are very consistent with what we just heard in the vision, and in the OCP document under each of these we have more detailed statements that talk about how to achieve things like sustainability and environmental stewardship. There are some major changes in format from the previous OCP, which was finished in 2008, to the one we have now. One is that people talked about in the old OCP, it was a little bit hard to find things, it was hard to navigate, sometimes the language wasn't really clear. And so we've worked hard to have a tighter format, hopefully very easy to find the topic you're interested in, easier navigation. So for example, things are color-coded, so all of the policies have an orange bar next to them. The other thing is the previous OCP map had 34 different land use designations. Now try to be a cartographer and come up with 34 distinct colors that people can read. There were about 5 shades of pink, and I always had trouble figuring out what the land uses were on that. So we worked on consolidating it as much as we could, which ended up at 20 land use designations. And I think the colors are doing okay, but this is a draft, and if you think there are colors we need to change, please let us know. We've also tried to make this one more graphic with lots of photographs of Mission to help just make it clear that this is Mission's plan and let people see what a great community it is. These are some of our key policies. So one is we need to have infill where possible. So in very large areas within the urban core of Mission, we are encouraging and supporting infill. And that's things like laneway houses, coach houses, turning single family into duplexes or triplexes to try to make the most of the area that's already serviced. Going along with that is looking at compact development. There's tons of literature that shows that when communities sprawl, which is sort of the traditional word for that bad thing, and go covering major areas of land with single family housing, the cost of services, and we're talking roads, sewers, water, and some of the others, are very expensive, and that's partly what drives up the high cost of development. And so compact development is more affordable, it's more walkable, it helps to support things like transit. The next policy is about mixed uses in vibrant walkable hubs. So we've tried as much as possible to have designations that allow multiple uses. So for example, In almost all of the commercial areas, we're saying it's great to have residential uses as well. So put the housing above the stores. Having more people in the area makes it more vibrant. And then all of the above policies help to support having more space for the environment, parks, and food security. One of the tools we are using is an urban growth boundary. The 2008 OCP did not have an urban growth boundary, but one was developed within the district not long after that other OCP as part of the Fraser Valley Regional Growth Strategy. So the image here on the top left, the black lines are the old urban growth boundary that has been in existence, and it was kind of jagged lines. And the red dashed lines on that graph and the entire yellow on the bigger one are showing the proposed new urban growth boundary. So this is saying that this is where the district supports urban development, and by having a line defined like that, or an area defined, it helps to emphasize the fact that the areas outside of this urban growth boundary are to remain rural and natural. And so this is helping us to get that compact community. Another change, and this is a challenging one. So the area colored blue on this map is where we are designating future employment lands. The challenge is that this is also in the agricultural land reserve, and Mission has a very limited amount of agricultural land. So it's a difficult one. We're saying future employment lands. It's to help set up explorations on the future. Perhaps there could be an agriculture component as part of these future employment lands, but it is really, really important for Mission to have more employment opportunities, as I said, and this is really one of the only areas that's highly suitable for employment because industry needs good highway, rail, and water access, which this location has. There's really very little other, even flat land available for development in Mission. The next change I want to talk about is Silverdale. So Silverdale has not really been developed yet, but it's been spoken of and planned as an urban community for many years. And what we're saying about Silverdale really is that it is designated as a special planning area, and that anything that happens within here in terms of future development needs to be part of a new neighborhood plan that takes a comprehensive look at this area. There was a previous plan, but it's outdated and it really needs to be considered again, and servicing and roads and everything else need to be looked at as part of that plan. Now the exception to that is, well, not really the exception, but a distinctive area within that is the area highlighted in red on this slide, which is Neighborhood 1. Neighborhood 1 was actually zoned for urban use. We are hoping though, and if the landowners are willing to do this, that it also is reviewed with a new neighborhood plan as part of the entire Silverdale area. Cedar Valley is another area that we are designating as a special planning area, and the blue line on this map outlines the Cedar Valley area. So part of this has been developed, but the later phases have not. The Cedar Valley plan was done 20 years ago, and again, it's outdated. It really needs to be reconsidered, and we're hoping that more dense uses can be proposed within Cedar Valley because, again, all the services are there. It's within the urban growth boundary, and there's a lot of opportunity for some good new development in Cedar Valley. Steelhead is the final slide I'm going to show about these areas with some change. In Steelhead, the area that is rural residential, I think I have that right, in the center, whatever it is, it's that area in the center with that's colored the light yellow, has been consolidated into a more uniform, consistent shape, whereas before it had some jagged lines showing the areas that could be developed to slightly smaller lots. People might wonder, okay, what if a property owner or a developer has land outside the urban growth boundary that they would like to develop? And so we have a policy in there for that. And what it says is that the developer would have to pay for the development of a neighborhood plan or local area plan. They would have to demonstrate that the development will be fiscally responsible for the district, meaning that it will not cost the district any money in services or anything else to develop that area. All on and off-site servicing would have to be paid for by the developer. There'd have to be a market feasibility study and a demonstrated need for the land uses proposed. It would have to meet the environmental policies of the OCP, and they would have to present a 3D visualization to the public and surrounding property owners showing what it would look like. The reason for that is I happen to have seen one of the proposals for a development in Mission. It was a fairly steep hill form. The proposed development on it was a grid of fairly small lots. And I think that if people could have seen what that really looked like in 3D, the reactions to it would be quite different from seeing it laid out on a plan view where you really can't see the impact on the land from the proposal. So what are the next steps? We have an online community survey that we would encourage you to fill out, and we're going to have that open until February 17th. Once we get all the surveys, we'll compile the results, and we will make any changes we need to the OCP. Once that's done, we will complete the list of action items at the back of the OCP, which hasn't been done yet. It'll include things like neighborhood planning and modeling to understand some of the servicing needs. After that, the OCP bylaw will go to Council for presentation, and it'll go for first and second reading. After that, there's a public hearing, after which it's sent to the province Ministry of Community Services. It's sent for referral to the Agriculture Land Commission and First Nations, and then finally it's approved at Council. Coming out of the OCP, two of the main action items for sure will be the Cedar Valley neighborhood plan as a high priority, and sometime later probably the Silverdale plan. In terms of making revisions to the draft OCP, the very best time to make them is now, which is why we're going out to for public consultation and with the community survey. After first and second reading, only minor amendments can be made. And after the public hearing, anything more than fixing typos or grammar or anything like that, if there are significant changes made, it has to actually go back to another public hearing, which is time-consuming, costly, and we really try to avoid that. So please let us know what you think sooner rather than later. And that is the end of the presentation. Thank you.